three motors and like four controllers. So the kids said they need it. But they had any motors that used to love what they told me. That's all they had them working that they had. All the assets are problems. No, I asked about wheels. They said they don't check.
I need some wheels. If you don't want to sell, you have any broken ones? It's key.
I don't know. I don't even have to say, I don't know. If I got two cars, I'll fix it later. You know it? Yeah, but I want to know
This car was originally built by previously in 2004, and we just continued to, after Hurricane hit, decided to come back and raise some art on here. Actually, yeah, that was kind of ever, so we're doing one driving over. That kind of, so, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm a little nervous, because I mean, I was going to avoid hitting a building, so instead of stopping like a normal person, I tried to take a really sharp turn, which broke the axle, and, you know, bent the axle, and some tires, and
He drove a lot in our well pro. But this is all things that should be driving pretty well. And we get a lot of laps.
I started with this race way back in 1996. Years into so at the time I didn't really know what the point of it was. Being a part of this event is what you need to learn there. I've never been able to leave. I've been back in the years since. And of course, the race
Okay, cool. Yeah. I haven't got it back yet. Okay.
I started a solo car team in 1997 with my friend Daniel Sands. We were essentially looking for an engineering project to work on together, and we just found this high school competition. So we decided to try to build something. He was in Washington, D.C. at the time, I was in LA, we were looking up rules, and we decided to put something together, and by the end of the year, we built a solo car. We've been racing all day in the Texas weather. It's beautiful out here, and we're just praying for the sun. Our school and the community have been so supportive in everything that we've done as far as funding a steering committee to allow us to raise money and monetarily as well as supportively. So it's a great opportunity for Houston to sit and have a great feeling on our behalf to get to raise and represent Houston. And to hopefully take the engineering aspect of racing second car is a big jump. The first car it was just we were happy if it worked. And this car we pushed for less friction, more speed, more aerodynamic, and make it look really nice and get the most efficiency out of everything we can get.
You know, I think this is great because one thing, people get excited about it. Even since the time that we started this car, we got friends involved to do this engineering challenge. Since then, coming back to volunteering, every time I come to this race, I get excited because I see all the teams bring all these team members in, get excited about racing their solar car, get excited about building something and actually making it run in traffic.
People did it though.
Three racing day, the first three, trying to pass Scrutineering.
I think we originally thought of doing it like the end of the last day, but it was never.
Pretty much replaced everything. A bunch of other teams started helping us out. We're running the belt. What you kind of getting tore up. So a bunch of teams officially helped us out. And they Colorado team and a couple other teams really helped us out. We changed to we got parts for a sprocket, chain, hydraulic brakes. Yeah, we got a good ratio going. Pretty much took half of our batteries out for less weight because we didn't need all the battery shreds to be out.
No way. It's a black
thing. We passed the race test, so at the race, now we're at
That was our first car.
trouble with our solar system.
That's our first car.
We're about 5 miles an hour. We're at least racing, so it was worth all the hard work.
We've gone through so much over the last 6 days, and the thing that has the greatest impact on me is the way that the students, as we've seen in the past, are in this race binding together in one group. You need to come and be a part of this. We challenge you to be a part of this. The races we go from Dallas to Colorado.
Well, I know what's under there. It's just a yeah, a lot done. Because you gotta do a 9-volt battery. You have to attach a 9-volt battery to get it power. Plug in your
Just what you're talking about changing. Once you got all your I don't want to do that.
non-stop, 20-hour days, and about $8,000 trying to get a couple laps in, and prove people wrong, say we can do it. So you don't have to. It's not really hard. It's never been run before. A couple laps. One lap yesterday we got home, and basically try to see how far we can go. That's what we got.
They finally got them set up.
But I told him.
I'd like to say had a problem yesterday. It wasn't just that team. They got apart from somebody else. Another team over here.
Yeah, we'll find something. You know what, now that you mention it,
All right, I guess we're going to get started again. I hope you all like the really artistic version of this video. Now we have Joe Pence. I'll let you go ahead and kick us off.
All right. My name is Joel Pitts. I'm from Greenville High School, and this will be our third year to compete, but actually our fourth year. We started getting a team together back in 2011. Let's see if the PowerPoint comes up. I got about 4 slides, but there's a lot of bullet points on there that I'm going to talk about. If at any point you want to ask a question, just raise, I'll stop. We can talk about that, explore it. I'm mainly going to speak from the perspective of just my own experience with the team, starting it up, coming to where you were sitting, where I was sitting, and where you're sitting right now 4 years ago, looking at this going a little overwhelmed, and what it took to get there. And so starting a solar car team and student commitment. Student interest and ownership, the first thing that I did is I was getting recertified in just technology education. I'm thinking, we've got a robotics team, but it's really limited. And only 36 kids a year get selected for it. And we've got 1,100 kids in our high school. And I know that there's other students out there with abilities and want to do something that is similar but a little different. And so I started looking, and I came across this competition, and it just blew me away. And so I started seeing what students would be interested. And so I had a pretty good interest. I think I got about 4 or 5 students that I knew and knew me. And so I said, well, let's go to the new team workshop. And so we went together, and we saw this. And I took the promotional video that they had, and I presented it to my administration. I wanted to make sure that I had their blessing and their commitment to do this. And when they saw what it was, they said absolutely. But at the time, and you may run into this, when you tell them you're going to build a solar car, in their mind they're thinking like a RC remote control or something. For whatever reason, I kept running into that roadblock. I don't know, has anybody had that experience with any of their administration or has had that experience? And so I didn't really start getting their eyes until we started saying, hey, you know, we got funding from our local electrical company in this amount, and our superintendent's eyebrows raised, so that's a pretty big chunk of money. What are y'all doing? And so I had to go through it with him again. And so then he got hooked on it and said, absolutely, you can do that. And at the time, we had zero space. We didn't know where we were going to build this car. Fortunately, we had hired a new automotive teacher, and he was taking over for the previous teacher, and they'd put this lift in a really goofy spot in the back of the automotive bay. And so he said, y'all can use that. We don't use it for anything. And so we were on top of them for a couple of years. Admin support. Yes.
I admire the way that you have worked with your administration, because Mr. Pitts here did something that was remarkable. He won over his superintendent to the point that the person who waved the green flag to get things going, starting him off in the race, was their superintendent. Came from Greenville, started the race here right outside the Northwest High School. Incredible thing. So if you can get your administration, your principal, your superintendent involved in it, then you're going to have a unimpeded flow of income. Nobody's going to be standing in the way, and it's great. It's a wonderful thing to get your administration involved. So I admire you for that.
Yeah, and one of the things, if you have an administration that's going to support you, the one thing I can say is carpe diem, because you know that if you get a different superintendent in, they may have a whole different viewpoint of how they want the district to run or the school to run. Right now, we have one that is project-oriented based. So he wants hands-on projects. He wants students developing things, building their knowledge, not just, you know, taking it in and regurgitating it. So we got administrative support all the way from our principals up through the superintendent, and that helps whenever you are looking for that last bit of funding to make it through, so to make sure you have enough travel money, build money, and just the I need that money, because you will need the money, because there's stuff that will come up. So we have that. I'm able to go to my principal and say, hey, is there any supply money available? Can you go with us? We're going to do a presentation for Farmers Electric Co-op, and they'll go with you and support you so that the community sees the schools behind it. One of the things that somebody asked me when we were outside, do you do this as a club or a class? And I thought for it to be successful for my circumstances is I really needed it to be in a class. And so I started scouring and looking for a class that would work. And one of the ones that was on the books here in Texas that's hard to find, one of the other teachers knew about, is Energy, Power, and Transportation. It's like one of the first classes that feeds into automotive technology. Well, it covers all ranges of energy, and then there's a section over alternative energy. And since I'm current technology and I'm able to focus and write my curriculum however I want, I did that and focused right in on alternative power. So that's what the whole class focuses over. And so I have it as a class. There's other groups in here that are probably deciding on to do it as a club or a class. If you can work it into a class, that's going to help you out, because you'll have time during class for meetings. The students will be there, and it just makes it a little bit more convenient. Fundraising, well, that's huge. That's huge. One of the things you want to do is, like when Dr. Marks talks about earlier, the students being prepared to talk. Anytime that somebody asks me to come speak out in the community, I said, well, I'll love to get up and introduce my team, because I don't want to be the one up there speaking. I'm speaking today because he wanted me to speak from a sponsor's perspective of starting a team. But having the students get up, and the things that impressed me is we went to a sponsor that had done like $2,500, and we gave the students gave a presentation over the race this last year and how well we did. And it was real technical, and all they wanted to know is, well, how fast does your car go? And so we thought, well, we probably need to put some of that in there. And before we even got through the presentation, the CEO stood up and says, hold on. Everybody was real impressed with how well spoken the students were, that he went ahead and committed a starting of like $5,500, and we were shocked. And he said, Let us know what your other sponsors do, because we want to be your number one sponsor. So we're waiting on one of our huge sponsors to come back, because I can't wait to call him and say, okay, here's the deal. You know, that's huge. One of the things in fundraising, it's not always about getting dollars. Sometimes it's about partnering with people in your community. How many in here are starting a first team that's a public school? Everybody knows, and this may be the same with private schools, but everybody knows that funding and trying to buy stuff is a big issue, right? You can't just go buy stuff on eBay or anything like that. So here's one of the things you may want to look for. Look for a mom and pop owned business in your community that's not willing to give you money, but is willing to add anything they want to their inventory that's on your vendors list. A good case in point is in our community, we have a business called Henley Auto, and it's CarQuest, but he owns, Randy, the guy that owns it, he owns it, and we went to him and said, look, we're trying to source certain products, and this happened back when we were trying to buy the REL multi-point power trackers from Australia, because Australia doesn't want to do what schools do, where you get the product and then you pay them. They want all the money and then they send you the product. And so we went to Randy and talked to him, and he said, yeah, I'll do that. I said, well, what's your markup going to be? Because O'Reilly's was going to charge us 25% markup. And we're thinking we can't pay that. And he says, oh, we won't do anything. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, you bring all the stuff you want to order. He says, I'll just pay for it through my credit card or PayPal account. And then once we get it, then you give me a PO, and then I'll charge your school. And so he has been one of our most valuable sponsors, because we go to Randy. We're like, okay, I sit in his office and I've got all this stuff printed out, checked off. I said, okay, we need to go to Summit Racing and we need to order this. We need to go to Cloud Electric and I need to order this and this. He's like, okay, no problem. And then I was kind of leery, because we did a really big purchase on our new panels, and it was pricey. And I said, Randy, here's what we need to do. They need like half the money up front. He says, oh, don't worry about it. We'll just pay for it when we come in. I'll let you know. You just pay us. And so I was taken back at him footing that kind of bill for brand new panels that were custom made from SPM Solar. And so that is better than money sometimes. Space and equipment. You've heard some other people talk. Some teams start out with nothing. Mark earlier said he does it right out of his classroom. We started working just right out of we worked out of our classroom, and then we moved into the automotive bay, working with the teacher, and we worked right on top of each other and his other students. And so we made it work, and it worked. And as you work and as you do better, and you start getting notoriety in the paper and working with your administration, they'll start helping you find space. So they were able to clear out 2 storage areas outside that had bay doors but nothing in them, and they let us convert that into working space. And so we've been doing that this whole year, converting so we have a space to work on the car now. And equipment, go to your automotive teachers if you have it. If you never heard of a place called Harbor Freight, if you need to get tools and you're on a budget, you can get decent quality tools there. And if they break, they're cheap enough you can replace them if the students lose them. It's just a good place to get things that you need. You can buy welders, wrenches, lights, trailer stuff that you need to wire your car. They have electrical, zip ties. It's an option for you. Let's see here. Student ownership, I kind of want to go back and talk about that. I kind of took a note from one of our teams. Our robotics teams has a student commitment form. And I thought it was important to have the students really put down in writing that they're committed to the team. And the form lays out what's expected as far as integrity of each individual on the team, because you as a sponsor, you're not going to be around to watch them all the time like you would as students in a class. So you really need to be able to trust these students on almost a peer-like level and know that they're going to represent you, represent your school, represent your state, and this organization that you're going to participate with in a way that's conducive to say, wow, look at how awesome those kids are. And so we preach integrity. We make it a cornerstone of our team. And we self-police. So if a student's not doing something or doing something that would reflect, or maybe has made a comment about another team, we're like, look, we're not really racing that team. We're really racing ourselves, okay? It's a very cooperative race, and everybody that's done it, that's one of the coolest things. These solar car teams in here, they're going to be your biggest fans. I've learned that. We've been the biggest fans. If you can help each other, we do it. They do it. It's really pretty cool. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so here's where I'll probably talk a whole lot. What was it like building your first car? I didn't want to put it right up here because I didn't want to freak anybody out, but it was very, very stressful. There's a place called Green Oaks in Greenville, Texas, and I was ready to check myself in. The things and failures that happen were a good thing, so don't be afraid of that. It's definitely a good thing. You want to fail early, because as soon as you fail and the students realize it's okay to fail, then they're going to start doing more stuff, trying more things, and things just start evolving. I've told some people it's kind of like this. When you start to get students rolling, it's kind of like getting an old steam engine going, and it slowly starts going. Once you get it going full steam, it's hard to stop it. After a race is over with, they keep calling my phone. They're like, hey, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. Where do you start? What do? You start with a motor, you start with maybe your batteries or your frame. What's the car going to look like? We started by just setting a goal. We're going to build a car, pass scrutineering, and then if we get one lap and it blows up, we're going to high-five each other. That's what our goal was the first year. Get there, pass scrutineering, high-five, and if the car blows up, that's fine. We were a success. We're going to be champions in our own eyes. And as a sponsor, man, it's okay to say I don't know. I can't tell you how much. I've probably been more of a student with the students than I have been a teacher with the students. Because when we started this, I didn't know. I didn't know. We knew some. We're like, okay, we know that the sun comes into the panels. We know that you need a DC to DC converter so that it talks to the batteries, and you get that relationship. But a lot of it was just still kind of foggy, so we're going there. And I'll just be honest with your students. Say, look, I don't know it, but let's look it up together. Let's take this journey together. And you know what? You're going to build relationships with those students that you've probably never experienced before. I know that I did. I've got students right now that are constantly calling back during college. They call it Christmas. How's it going? I'm like, well, how are you doing? It's unique that the students start becoming more like family than they are students, and so you stay in touch with them after. And I got one student right now that's he ended up going in a full scholarship to Lincoln College Technology in Dallas, and he's going through the Master Welding course. That's what he wanted to do. And because of Solar Car, he was like 1 out of 460 that got the only full scholarship available. So I'm looking forward to him coming back and teaching our kids some really, really good welding points and maybe helping us out. And he's been willing to do that. Where do you get your parts? You just start scouring the internet. You get with your students. If you do what we do, we keep I'm going to step out here just 1 second and get something. These are really cool to keep because you can look at the other cars and it's got information that's not online. So like if you were to go through and look at our car, it's going to tell you basically what kind of solar cells we're using. It's going to tell you what kind of batteries they're using. You can figure out the weight. So you can kind of get a baseline of, our car, we're going to kind of get in here and meet this. There's some things you're not going to match. Or you're not going to be able to find the information. But I've got these going back to 2010. I just kept them, so they're good to thumb through because you're looking at how your car's performing, and then you want to compare it. Well, we know that car did better, so what did they do better? And you're always wanting to go back and thumb through it. So these right here are good to keep. We try to do this. We try to document everything so that if teams want to go to our website and look, they can go and look. We obviously put our wiring diagrams up from 2012 and for the auxiliary and the main, because we struggle with that a little bit. We went and looked at how golf carts were wired, and then we looked at, tried to look for actual solar car wiring diagrams. And if you can just have something to go with the basis off of to get that good general guide, and the new rules are great because they kind of do that now. Set realistic goals. Like I said, we just wanted to get a car built We didn't care about aerodynamics. We kind of cared how it looked. If you go through and look at our car, you can see the frame from 2012. And I didn't say it to the kids at the time, but when you look at it looking down, it kind of looked like a coffin. And I just didn't want to tell them. I said, hey, it kind of looks like a coffin, because we know we're going to race that. It was real rudimentary, and we overkilled it, because one of the things that I heard is you don't want to be breaking down all the time. And so we decided, let's just overkill it. We went with 1-inch mild steel, We did the cross members in there, and then we had the whole team we supported it where the wheels would be, and we had the whole team, 20 kids, get up and stand out and see if it would support the weight. And it did, so we thought, okay, we're probably good. It's a tank. The car out there right now, we shaved weight off of it, it still weighs 1,080 pounds. But as you go, you're going to start shaving weight off, and you'll get better and better. If I can make any, I'd give you just a little bit of advice. If you don't know anything about steering, man, start researching that, because steering will hose you. Our first year we bought, and it's still on the car, we went out and got just ATV A-arms, and we put it on the car. And a lot of teams do that, and it's fine. But if you don't understand caster, camber, and toe, and you just put them on there, and you go to steer, then you're going to have all kinds of issues. And one of the issues we had, and this was like the bane of our existence for like a few months, and all the way through the race in 2012, was when we would turn the wheel would just fold under on the car. And so we've done everything. We've got all these sponsors that give us money. We want to go and compete at the race. And so we kept working on that, and we try to ask around and research it, but we really didn't delve in it because there's so much going on the car. So you want to really look at how the steering will articulate. Front suspension and front steering is very important. What we ended up doing is just nixing the shocks and just putting straight bars in place of shocks to lock up the wheels, so that when we turn, we could turn. We just barely passed scrutineering that year, and they said, if you're going to do the race next year, you need to get all that. You need to have a better steering. So when we came back from the race in 2012, all we did for 2 months is we studied and decided that we need to know as much as the front end alignment that guy knows when he goes to do our car. So we studied caster, camber, toe. When we studied all that, went back, it was obvious what was wrong. We had our caster was turned way too forward. And so then we were able to line it up, and it worked flawlessly since. Successes. Enjoy any success that you make on the car. The best day was when we had a rolling chassis, and you could steer it, and we got out there and we pushed everybody in it. We wanted to see how it functioned. There weren't any brakes, but there wasn't a motor either. So, but you push everybody around, and that's really when we started noticing the steering's not right. And then we had shocks that didn't work, so it would kink, and it would fall over, and it wasn't stable. And so you had successes, but then you had some failures. And so one thing leads to the other, and it's an ongoing process. And we tried to do this. We tried to use the Scrutineering packet that you can access online. There's an example of Scrutineering. We tried to go through it and build our car from the Scrutineering and the rules. If you just go out and build your car without the rules, you're probably going to have a car that probably won't pass, or you'll get here and you can't fix it in time to pass. Another piece of advice, I had the rules next to my nightstand. The only way I could go to sleep in the summer leading up to the first race was I had to read through them every night. And then I had a little peace of mind, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat and read them again. You'll do that, and you'll read those, and then you'll get here, and there's something you miss, and you're like, that was so obvious. I read those rules 5,000 times. How did we miss that? And you'll notice this too. You'll tell the students, hey, you need to put a double nut on that. They won't do it. You get to scrutineering, and all of a sudden they're doing all that. It's really interesting how they'll listen to the judges and not the sponsor. I found out there talking to the car that from one of the persons that's done this a long time, I guess you're always stressed out during scrutineering. It never gets easy. Is that pretty much true? I mean, I try not to have a heart attack and stay away from the kids while it's going through, and I just wait for the shoe to drop. Because there's always something that's unexpected, something that you'll have to work through for your car to pass. Are there any questions right now?
You mentioned that you had to stand back from scrutineering. That's something that teams need to realize, that there'll be no sponsor there with them. They're there by themselves at scrutineering.
That's right. Once you get there with your teams at scrutineering, you need to just back up and be a spectator. Let the students do it. One of the reassuring things that happened is our captain that's not here right now, he's working on a robot at the high school. I said, Jake, we kept going over questions. I said, the judge asked you this, judge asked you this. He goes, Mr. Pitts, I got it. I was like, and that's when I finally saw the kids take completely over. And then from that point on, even through last year, I'd go up and say, hey, did y'all do this? They're like, Mr. Pitts, we did that 5 minutes ago. And I'm just like, I get out of the way. One of the things that you may have an issue with is for me, I love building stuff. I love the fabrication process. I love seeing things work. I love seeing failures get fixed. Try not to get too involved. And if I find myself getting too involved, I say, okay, you can take that idea, guys. It's your car. Just flush it down the toilet if you don't like it, because it's their car. Our principal asked us, hey, you think we could auction off somebody to drive that car? And I looked at him funny and I said, you're going to have to ask them, and I think they're going to say no. I don't think they want somebody that didn't build the car to drive it. This is the student. This is a student project in the student's car. Okay? If somebody asked me, can we do this with the car? I said, we're going to have to ask them. It's their car. They built it. They have all that invested energy, time, and commitment into it. It's not fair for me to say, oh yeah, let's let somebody else just do something with it. The students will take ownership of this if you give them ownership of it. Again, read the rules. If you build the car according to the rules, you should pass scrutineering. I would say so, and then try to have enough time. Dr. Marks and I were talking about this. We've always tried to set a goal of let's have the car finished April 1st. Now, I didn't think about that being April Fool's Day, but it usually is because the car's not finished April 1st. You're usually always working. We find ourselves working the first year all the way up to putting the last part on it right before we brought the car here. Last year it wasn't as bad. We got done 2 weeks before the race. But try to set hard deadlines to try to finish the vehicle, because if you don't, you're going to find yourself working all kinds of crazy hours up to the race to get it done. And then you're hoping that you've done everything, that you can get it fixed if you haven't at scrutineering. We've got a goal this year of trying to get some road tests in our county. So we've got a goal of trying to be done with the car by spring break, which will be around March. We're going to do some really minor modifications so we can do some road racing. If y'all noticed, the panels weren't on the car. We weren't really worried about that because we were going to cut them off anyways. The car just decided it didn't want it earlier than we didn't want it to have it. Unexpected stuff.
About how he practices with his car. I know your team does big stuff in the spring.
We do. We put hours on the road, and we do a lot of driver training. So that, as a sponsor, the race rules are fine and good and all of those other things, but at some point as a sponsor, what happens, those students comes back to us.
That's right.
So we get our local police department to take us with the team out there on the bypass, which is a thing around our highway around our city, which is 4-lane, and it's a little bit controllable, especially with police. And we start training on how to simply pull out of the road. Very small baby steps. This is what our lead and chase vehicles, this is their responsibility, but this is your responsibility. And then we have what's called code, I think it's code blue. When you hear code blue, you don't ask questions, you pull that car over and you get out. So our training, not only do we learn our car, but our training is totally around keeping that kid alive and safe. And you're not just training those kids, you're training these adults. That chase vehicle and that lead vehicle, their eyes need to be forward and backwards. I'm in the chase most of the time, and I see as much going on behind me as I do forward. Like that car coming in, I'm not saying it will never happen, but you can take whatever vehicle is following that solar car. If you see a vehicle really coming by fast, you can take your arm, slow down. You can move your rig over toward that center line, and you can put that car on that other line.
I did that
Yes.
this summer.
That's better than all the crush zones. That's better than all the chromoly you can pile on a car.
And that's a good point, because the motto that we had this summer was above anything, we made safety number one. And when we did the scrutineering for getting your car on and off the trailer, I think I was harder on our team than the judges were, because when I saw the student on the left side of the trailer where it gets them in traffic, I lost my mind, because I do not ever want to be witness or privy to any student getting hit by a car. So we made sure that all the students were on the shoulder, grassy knoll side, getting in the trailer to load the car and let it down, never on the left side.
I couldn't imagine bringing a car to this race and demonstrating to a student and putting that kid in one of these cars on the highway. I can't comprehend that.
That's a good point, and I'll admit it.
I can't
We
comprehend.
didn't have any training on it. That was one of the things I was very stressed
my
about.
gosh.
And we tried to focus in on that during scrutineering at the track, and I talked about it with them a lot. I said, guys, this is like super important.
These cars doesn't drive like your vehicles drive, first of all. They're light and dark and they dash. There's a huge learning curve on learning to drive these vehicles.
What scares us to death is when we start going through scrutineering, and one of the phases through this is called the Slalom, where you put a driver in and see what they know. And we talk to them, we say, well, what's your experience? I've never driven this before. You do not want that. There is a certain sense of security when people think, well, we're going to drive on a closed track. Not so. Closed track is hazardous because if you don't have experience driving and driving that car, you're not going to be aware that another car is coming up behind you or trying to pass you, or you're trying to pass them. That requires driving experience. Somebody will say, well, we're on a closed track, we're not on the road. Do I have to have a driver's license? Of course. Not the license, but the experience. You really need that experience. And the best thing you can do is to be sure March, April, you're out on the road with your team actually driving. That will mean more to you, more peace of mind to an advisor and a sponsor by having them out doing that.
You know, and we didn't know if we could go out on the road or not. We didn't actually approach the sheriff's department and the local city about that. You know, and they said if they had an officer, they'd be glad to escort us and let us know the route. The only driving that we did do, because our first year was a closed track, we went out and had all the drivers do the scrutineering on the student parking lot after hours. Set up the cones, had them go through it. I wanted to see them navigate to the left, to the right. I wanted to see them apply the brakes a certain way. We kind of followed them in a golf cart, and that was kind of the extent. You could probably simulate the road in your student parking lot if it's big enough. So if you don't feel like you can get out on the highway. But safety, man, I would make safety number one. I mean, if you're not safe and something happens, then you weren't having any fun.
It really is important that you have your chase car drivers practice with you too. We had some issues with that. We had some unsafe passing, just thinking they needed to keep us all together on the trip last year.
And it takes training and time to do that.
You know, that makes me think of one of the, you know, this is good we're talking about this, because this year is a hybrid race, part of the track and going to Austin. One of the issues that we came into, we had great radio communications. We had all the students do the same kind of radio class you would do in the military, just how to talk on the radio, get the laughing out of the way. You know, I always tell them it's harder doing it face-to-face. When you're in the car, you're not looking at them, you're just talking to them. But let the students know, and we had a coordinated way in which to answer and talk on the radio so that everybody answered appropriately, said their call sign, they knew who it was. But if you have parents that are going to follow you on the road race, y'all need to have a meeting with them and talk about them giving you distance. We had some parents that were following too close and then passing us, getting up and trying to take pictures, and we had to tell them, you need to stay way behind us, or you need to go way ahead, let us pass, give us 15 minutes and stay way behind us, because we had parents that were blocking up and causing a backlog behind us, and that could be a safety issue. So that's something to look at and have a good, hard conversation. Luckily, we have a parent that was very good at it, and so we're bringing her in. And when we go to have the meeting with the parents, we're going to have her talk to them with her experience. So it's not just us preaching at them. Yeah, what else could we say about safety?
This race is a great experience, but it's not worth a kid's life. And unless you put that kid in that student in that car in training, I just think you've taken a huge, huge gamble. It's going to happen at some point.
I would probably say this, if you know there's something wrong with your car and you think you can probably make it and nobody knows that's going on, judge doesn't know, let somebody know, because we would love to come over and help you solve that so that car's safe for that kid to drive. We wouldn't want your wheel to come off or something like that. You may have passed scrutineering and maybe something got damaged. You want to compete, you want to have competition, but we want to do it safely. We don't want anything to happen. So if something like that was to happen, and I haven't seen it happen anywhere, but I was just thought if that happened, you'd want to get that fixed.
Mr. Pitts, I appreciate your addressing this from an advisor's point of view. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be talking about how you organize a team, team building, and from our perspective, certain things that we do for safety. So it's all will complement each other.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide? So, what was our approach to building and racing our second car? The first car, I'll tell you this. We got our first lap down. We had a major malfunction. Our multi-point power tracker went completely out. We didn't know what happened. We ended up contacting the company. They told us what it was. And the students made the decision to wait for the part to come in because they knew that everything else in their car was good. They waited for the part to come in, and so we missed a whole section of racing on the first Monday in the afternoon. We only did 3 laps. But we did 2 more than what our goal was, so we were very excited. We got our power tracker in, and we realized real quick that we couldn't see the data coming in because we had mounted it behind us. If you see it's in the car, it's mounted behind us. We couldn't see what our amperage was coming out to our batteries, and so we were kind of just racing blind. Write down everything, record your voltage at certain times. If you don't have, most first-year teams won't have telemetry, but you want to record all that so you can kind of get an idea how's your car performing over time, and especially different ways of driving at different speeds or different amperage. We didn't have any of that, and one of the students says, hey, let's go to Walmart and get some notebooks, and they just started writing it down. And then they said, hey, who's got the laptop? Next thing I know, they're putting it into, this is what blew me away, is I didn't prompt this with them at all. They start putting it into Excel. And so we started having points of data, and as the days went by on the track race, the car started running better because they stopped running it just full out and then pulling off to charge it and running full out, pull off to charge it. So we had that data. So the experience that we got on the track race and the experience of talking to sponsors that have raced before towards the end of the race when they knew they were way ahead of us and there was no chance, they started sharing information. We took that all to heart. We listened to what one team says, you need to know your car. Houston Solar Racing always says you got to know your car, and so we took that with us, and we put that towards our car. The first year car that we raced is sitting out there underneath that plastic body we put over it. It's the same frame, it's got different wheels on it, but it's basically the same. We just improved the steering. We've got the same motor. We upgraded the sprocket because we did some numbers and realized we needed a bigger sprocket. We tried to lighten it as much as we could. We started forming a strategy. If there's a book that I can tell you to buy, it's called The Winning Solar Car. It can feel a little daunting, but once you get in there and delve into it and start reading it, it can help you with your strategy as far as how to run your car. So data, and I'll tell you what the difference was. The first year that we raced, we placed 7th in the Classic Division. The second year, we decided this. We're going to run our race, and we're going to run what we know, and we're not going to try to worry about what everybody else is doing. I kept telling the students, if a team passes you, don't worry about it. Run your race. I use this theory, and I used it the other day. Slow and steady, steady and slow. That's the way the solar car goes. And slow is whatever your definition of slow is. Whatever your sweet spot is for running your car, when you figured that out, that's where you're going to want to run your car based on however many miles you want to get. If you do that and collect your data, it makes all the difference in the world. Our first day on the road race, we were shocked. We came in, it was 106.1 miles, and first place was Byron Nelson, and they were at 107.1 miles, and it was like that close. And so we were like, wow. And we stayed in second the whole time, and it's all strategy. Byron Nelson got ahead of us because they raced during a cloud cover section. They had a better way of reading the weather than we did, and it was fantastic. So applying the strategy, I don't know what the percentage is, but once you get your car built, you're going to look back and go, wow, building the car, it's a big part, but it's really small when you start to really learn that vehicle. You really start to apply the strategy to it. You start to be disciplined in your strategy. Well, when we took our car out this second year and we put it on the track and we jumped up to 40 miles an hour real quick, man, it was tempted to just go out of the gate, let's floor it and run 40. It's going to be a blast on the highway. You can't, I mean, we couldn't do that. We knew we would burn through our batteries too quick. So you had to be disciplined. There was still stuff to learn. We didn't know how it was going to, navigate up hills and down hills. And so the first day of our racing was really experimental, just trying to find the niche for our car on these hills. And some of the hills were way bigger than what we thought. It kind of got us. And we didn't know, are we going to make it over the hill? So we thought, well, let's just go and see if we can make it. And we made it. We're like, okay, no problem. So we did every hill except for the big downhill. We ran out of time coming out of 24 Palms.
The reason why I'm laughing is I try to describe these things in the little book. And so I'll sometimes say, it's a big hill. It's a bigger hill. It's a heck of a bigger hill.
Yeah.
Grab hold, you're going on, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
the best way to deal with it is to do your own research on the route so that you know where the hills are. Lee Cade was a master about this on the race to Florida. What you would do would be you trailer your car to the top of the hill, take it out of the trailer and drive downhill. Then when you got down, you put it in the trailer again, trailer it up to the top of the next hill and go on and do this. You made better use of your energy, you got more miles, but it's because you knew what the topography was.
Ryan, we saw him do this. A couple of months before the race, I live in Mississippi now, 2,600 miles from Lee Cade. I look up and I see Lee Cade coming out of the GPS in his hand.
Yeah, that's funny.
You see me? He was out there practicing with his feet.
Well,
He knew those hills.
we didn't have the option of driving the route, but what we did is we found a website called Bike Toaster, biketoaster.com, and it's people that ride bikes, they really want to know where the hills are. And I thought, well, we really want to know where the hills are too. So it allows you to segment out a stretch of road you can lay it out, and it'll tell you the elevations along that route, and that can help you with your strategy. So if you know it's a big hill and you know where it's at, or you know it's a big, long uphill, you may want to trailer and drive to the other end of that because it might be a big downhill. And then heavy research, students teaching students. You've got your students that have done it, new students coming in. One of the things that I decided to implement this year was, I don't have a textbook on the solar car, but what I did was I took everything that we did, what was the rear end made out of? I pull up a picture of that motorcycle. I built kind of a starter manual. And I've turned that over to the students. I said, okay, guys, this is your book. You're going to add to this. You are going to bring all your stuff together. You're going to make one, and then you're going to hand it off to the next students, because that's going to bridge the gap on your learning curve for the car, and it's going to help students coming in to also build and hand that off to the next students, the next students coming in behind them. So everything that the seniors learn, their notes, we'll put it in that book, and then they'll be able to translate that to students 2 years down the road that they may not ever see. So I thought, that's product-oriented education with students producing knowledge. Let's see here. Experience, man, it's everything. Experience is everything. Students, after they race the first time, I guarantee you they're hooked. It's like a drug. It's all you can talk about. It's all we talk about. My co-sponsor back there, he's our culinary chef, and also my brother-in-law. We talk about it all the time. Christmas break. Oh man, this would be great if the students wanted to do this. Or hey, did you see this hub motor that this company's making that's brushed and it only costs $800? Stuff like that. So that was the big difference, was the experience and having a strategy. And you don't have to completely redesign your car. You can modify the car you got, race it again the next year, get some more information and strategy, and then maybe start planning a car for the future. That's what we're doing. But we're going to race this same car. Yes.
I'm just wondering, in terms of planning, do you have a class, it's just a regular classroom today that you have for solar car? And how do you interact with your other sponsor, if you have another sponsor? Did you say you have another sponsor?
Yeah, our other sponsor, he's actually our culinary director, and we just talked during his conference, his last period, which happens to be the same period as the solar car class, which is the energy, power, and transportation. And so he'll come down when he's got time, and we'll talk, and he'll break off. He's actually our strategy guy. He's my brother-in-law, and I've played board games with him. And I thought, hey, I've got this really cool book, and he took it and he curses me because he read the whole thing. And so he works. We have the kids split off, and he has a group of kids he works with strategy, finding all this information, and then I work with the mechanical side because it's really hard to do everything by yourself. It is like super hard to do everything by yourself. So having somebody else, and we've got one other person that's our automotive guy that's also helping us. All right, we can go to the other slide. Oh, this is pretty much the end of what I've been talking about. For fundraising, give every potential sponsor the opportunity to say no. I come up with a motto: make them tell you no. Okay. Now, don't go in there and just say, "Hey, give us your money." You want to go in and do a presentation and then nicely call them back. Maybe they can't do it right then. Maybe you call them back in 6 months before the race. Say, "Hey, have you thought about this? Would you have room? It's a new fiscal year." Be creative with your sponsors. Like I talked about, finding somebody in your community that can be your go-to supply guy. These solar car teams, and when you race and everybody here, man, they're awesome. They'll be your biggest fan. I know that I've asked Keith questions before, and I can tell that he's just like stressed, but he still came over and talked to us for a minute and like gave us a little bit of insight. Let's see here. Applying what we've learned. Document everything that you learn. Keep a diary. Have kids document that. Take pictures of it. Get a Facebook page, Twitter account. Get all that out there. The more that you get out there, the more companies will contact you without you contacting them. That happened with us, with a company in Greenville. All the engineers wanted to come out and see our car, and they're like, "Hey, we create carbon fiber." And we're like, "Okay, that's really cool." And they're wanting to help us with, stuff that we can add to the car. So opportunities are waiting for you. Get yourself out there. Let people know what you're doing. Make sure your students can articulate what the solar car is about so that they can inform people. People ask us all the time, "Hey, where'd you buy the kit to build that car?" And we have to bite our tongues. We're like, "There ain't no kit for this car." We're like, "No, it's built from the ground up."
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
We've had people say, "Well, why don't you go ahead and provide kits?" But that destroys the opportunity to learn what materials you need and how to select. It takes all the creativity out of it.
Yeah.
But one piece of advice. I recommend that you take the time with your students to teach them the same answer to the questions. The first time we were doing this at a conference, years and years ago, there was an engineer who went up and down the line asking the students the same question. And he came over to me and he said, "I got 10 different answers. And all I asked was, how fast can you go?" And he said, "If your people don't know the same answer to a question, how am I supposed to have faith enough to put money in you?" So we developed a couple of things about this. One, each member of the team had to learn how to say something, a few lines, so that when somebody came over and asked you a question, you could sound intelligent. And then we actually had a fact sheet of what kind of aluminum are you using, what kind of battery, how many volts are you running, what kind of stopping mechanism do you have in your car, how much gasoline goes into the tank. Oh, guys, come on. I know it's a long day. But as a result of this, then when somebody asked different people on the team the same question, they got the same answer. And that creates trust in you and faith that you really know what you're doing. It doesn't sound like much, but it really does.
I'll just close with this. Our team's an open book. If you want to ask a question anytime or email us, I should have put my email up there, but it's if you go to our website, it's ghsolarteam.com, and it's got my email address on there. You can contact me. Chris Bartley from Gilmer, she contacted me, asked us where we got our early warning system for our auxiliary battery to tell us when it was low, and I just pulled up the eBay page and sent it to her. Everybody here that's going to build a car, man, I want y'all to be successful and be there to race. It's so much fun. I can't even explain how much of an experience it is. When you hear them say, this is going to change students' lives, it will. We have more students that are choosing and have already enrolled and been accepted to engineering schools because they put this on their portfolio and send it, and it's like, boom, right away they're in. They've got scholarships. It's awesome. It's an awesome program.
Universities are really interested in, we've discovered in the schools, some of our kids went right from the race last year up to Stanford. and the solar car team members were there. They invited them in to see what they're doing, and they said that we've never had a high school solar car team come talk to us. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity. So on February the 22nd, we're going up to Oklahoma, to the University of Oklahoma. They've got a solar car team, and we made a contact through a parent, and the sponsor there has contacted him a half dozen times, to help set this up. So you might get some help from universities around.
Absolutely, they want to, because they want your students to go to their solar car team.
Right.
Really important. Let's give Mr. Pitts a round of applause. Tomorrow morning, we're talking about how you put together a team, security, the importance of radios, and I want to invite you to come directly across the hall to have a little refreshment with us. And I hope you'll visit among yourselves and share and enjoy things, and I appreciate your good attention today. Attentiveness? Something like that.